Let's give our new Attorney General another round of applause for outstanding things. Eric Schmidt. Earlier this morning, I had an opportunity to briefly introduce President Hurst. At this point, I want to ask him to come forward for his annual address. But as he comes to the podium, let's share a few thoughts. We've heard several comments this year about how appropriate our theme is for the conference. Doesn't that really apply to President Hurst? We're indeed grateful for his tremendous leadership for our organization as it continues to grow and is stronger than ever. But what you may not know is the theme for this year's meeting was Blake's idea. He was in a meeting with several staff discussing the annual meeting and running thoughts through his head about how things were this year and tough at times, and how so many of us would like to forget some of those things. But he never loses sight on the big picture of how amazing ways to communicate and always put things of our lives in perspective. He's an advocate that never forgets what we are fighting for. He is an innovator who's always looking for improvement. While he looks to the future, he understands the importance of our past. The grassroots foundation of our organization will always be strong under his leadership. Would you please help me in welcome to the podium again, and being very grateful for our president, Blake Hurst.
Thank you, Todd. Todd probably gets tired of seeing my name come up on his cell phone, but it's a good relationship. It's a good opportunity to work with somebody that understands this organization, has a long history with our organization, and I rely on him a great deal as I try to do the job of being your president. I could not do it without that relationship, and we're so very appreciative that he serves as vice president and gives time away from his farm and his family for this organization. Over the past year, we've lost important members of our Farm Bureau family. We'll miss them a great deal. We've also, of course, just in the last few days, lost former President George Bush. Please join me in a moment of silence to remember those fine folks that we've lost over the past year. Thank you. The theme for this year's Missouri's Farm Bureau annual meeting is gratitude. I imagine most of you are wondering, why would you choose that? It's been a terrible year. Prices are too low. We started the year with a spring that never showed up, with snow on the ground in late April, then immediately went into a hot and dry summer. Nobody has any hay, and many of us had terrible corn and soybean yields because of the drought. The grain quality is lousy this year. And oh, by the way, harvest isn't over because of a wet and cold fall. Interest rates are headed up. We can't sell beans to China. And farm income is down for the year, continuing a decline that has lasted for 5 years. We chose gratitude as a theme precisely because it is hard to be thankful this year. If there were ever a year that crop and livestock yields or livestock prices were high, yields were great, the Cardinals, the Royals, the Chiefs won world championships, it'd be pretty darn easy to be grateful that year. But gratitude is the most important when it's the hardest. It is important when things go wrong to think about how very lucky we all are, to be grateful for the opportunities to have and to know that the next year will be better. To be born in the United States of America in the 21st century and live in the 21st century is a great blessing. All of us, every single one of us, have been born to privilege, and all of us should be always grateful. What do I mean? Well, let's think about just a minute or two about what's gone before. Think about 200 years ago, when 85% of the population lived on less than $2 a day. Now that's a tough year. Now I'm sure that many of you come tax time, me included, may not show much more than $2 a day profit on your Schedule F, but you aren't trying to live on $2 a day. That's the kind of poverty that none of us have to worry about. 100 years ago, my grandfather, There he is in his wedding picture. He and Grandma have just eloped. He wasn't quite up to snuff as far as her parents were concerned. 100 years ago this year, he spent the winter of 1918 driving around Nottoway County in a Model T, taking his brother-in-law, the local doctor, from house to house to tend to victims of the Spanish flu. In that awful year, 675,000 Americans died of the flu. The life expectancy for the whole country dropped 12 years in a single year. In 1918, the life expectancy of a young man born in 1918 was just 36 years. Yeah, I'm pretty grateful for modern medicine and the expectation that all of us have that our grandchildren will still be healthy well into their 9th decade of life. Or think about the year 1930, right after the Wall Street crash, where farmers were faced with awful prices and basically had the same technology and received the same yields that their grandfathers had available. Look at this graph of corn yields. Basically, no change. We'll get the graph of corn yields up there. Basically, no change from 1860 to 1930. We didn't get any better. We fed more people simply by plowing more acres. And then in 1930, something happened. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine going that many years without any improvement at a time when we've seen above trend yields for 6 years in a row. What has happened in our ability to produce food is nothing short of a miracle. We're living through a miracle, one that's happened in the lifetime of people in this room that has made us all richer and widespread hunger rare. Look at this graph showing the change in calories available to everybody alive today. Look at that change. And see that it's actually increasing in the past few years. That rate of trend has gone up. Bad years can still happen, as all of us know, but we are headed in the right direction. Farmers have both benefited from and contributed to the most amazing change in people's circumstances in the history of the human race. Yeah, I'm grateful for that, and I know you are too. But critics of our industry say, well, yes, but at what cost? Well, look at these slides. Not only have we increased yields, but we've done it in a way that's freed up resources for all the other good things in life, increasing production while actually decreasing the amount of resources we use. That's some pretty good stuff there. Look on it, you won't be able to read the numbers, but look at the statistics on soil erosion, and that's still our biggest environmental problem on the farm. We're making great progress, especially here in Missouri, where the leaders of Farm Bureau and other farm organizations had the foresight to do something about the problem decades ago, and we still benefit from their leadership. Yeah, I'm pretty grateful for what they did and what many of the people in this room helped to do. Gratitude is pretty easy when you take time to count your blessings. It's been a successful year for Missouri Farm Bureau. We made quota for the 31st year in a row, reaching the quota buster goal at state level here in Missouri, and we're one of the very few states to reach the navigator level at American Farm Bureau. Now, we've done that for so many years in a row that it's pretty easy to take it for granted. But it only happens because of hard work from our volunteers and our insurance team, and it's an important way to measure our success. We're a membership organization. Nobody belongs to Farm Bureau if they don't want to. Over 130,000 Missourians choose to belong because we meet a need that they have, because we provide value for those membership dues. Whether that's car insurance or a voice in Jefferson City or Washington, D.C., we can be proud of what we do for our members. Our insurance companies are profitable and in the most secure financial position that we've ever enjoyed. And that's important because every insurance contract is a promise that we stand ready to pay when misfortune occurs. We've kept expenses low while increasing our reach across the state, and that's made us one of the best performing Farm Bureau insurance companies in the nation. It's been the year of trade, and in fact, right before I come up on the stage, I got an email from a journalist in Washington, D.C. who works for the International AP, wanting to talk about the most recent trade talks. We talked to journalists all over the world, and trade has been the topic of conversation at every coffee shop and convenience store. We've seen some great progress in recent days in trade talks, both in the USMCA agreement and over the weekend, some great news about progress with China. Farm Bureau understands that we need a fairer relationship with China, but we are working hard to protect markets that mean the difference between profit and loss for our members. If we don't add international markets, we're going to have to shrink American farms. We're making great progress on passing a farm bill. We're looking forward just in the next few hours. We hope we get to see a chance to read the text, but we're glad. We're optimistic that'll get done before the end of the year, and that's really important for Missouri farmers. We strongly support the Trump administration's work toward a new Clean Water or WOTUS rule and urge all of you to comment when that rule is finally published. We made progress on broadband in the state and national levels, and we will continue our efforts to improve rural broadband. We've worked hard to protect individual property rights, whether that's in the Clean Line and going across North Missouri or the Rock Island Line here in Central Missouri. We just went through an election. Thank God it's over. And we're extraordinarily successful in the candidates we endorsed. Every candidate that we endorsed won. And not only that, every State House member who was up for re-election that received the Friend of Agriculture Award was successful in the election as well. Not only that, but we're pretty excited about what happened in the U.S. Senate race. The work that you all did this fall election will pay dividends for this organization for years to come. I had the opportunity to campaign for Josh for several days this fall. I'm impressed with his abilities, with his values, with his family, with his love for his family. He's going to be another star in the U.S. Senate, and his influence and intellect will be felt far past the borders of Missouri. It's pretty exciting to know that we at Farm Bureau were there at the beginning of what may well be an historic career. We weren't as successful in the propositions and constitutional amendments that appeared on the ballot. We can receive some satisfaction that knowing we were on the right side of the issues. We'll continue to work toward increased highway funding, and we're going to watch with interest as Amendment 1 wends its way through the certain court challenges. I'm really afraid that Missouri, particularly rural Missouri, may well come to regret our action on Amendment 1. I think one thing we have to worry about is the interplay between the defeat of Amendment D, or Proposition D, and the passage of Amendment 1. Once the 2026 census occurs and we redistrict under the rules of Amendment 1, senatorial districts representing urban constituents will increase. Failure of Proposition D is seen as a rural urban issue. In the months leading up to the election, at least one Republican senator from the St. Louis area floated the idea of turning all the lettered roads back to the counties. If lettered roads, with the proposition or passage of Amendment 1, we're going to have a couple more senators with urban backgrounds, urban constituencies. That idea is likely to gain more currency. If lettered roads are turned back to the counties, the only way to maintain those lettered roads is with local taxes, most likely property taxes. One thing is for sure, we can't maintain a road system with the same tax rate we put in place a quarter of a century ago, while fuel efficiency increases, and so do construction costs. Farm Bureau received some criticism from our friends for supporting increased use taxes, but we had the foresight to think about the alternatives, one of which I've just laid out. None of them are good for rural Missouri. A couple weeks ago, I was asked to speak over in St. Louis. When I arrived, I learned that the speakers in front of me were talking about medical marijuana. There was a standing room only crowd in the room, all full of folks who look forward from profiting from the 24 dispensaries that are going to be located in every congressional district in the Missouri due to the passage of the recent constitutional amendment. Finally, about 10 minutes after I was supposed to speak, they ended the brownie pushers talk and invited me to the front of the room. Everybody got up and left. Except for Denny Mertz. I want to say thanks to Denny. He did stick around. Not only was my talk less interesting than getting rich by getting other people high, but there happened to be free beer down the hall. As it turns out, I'm not much of a draw compared to free beer. For those of you who think I've talked long enough this morning and you want to leave, that's okay, but you're going to have to buy your own beer. I'm thankful for the opportunity to farm, to work with my family, to lead this wonderful organization. I'm grateful for the people I work with. If all the Farm Bureau staff in the room would please stand, I think you'll join me in thanking them for their hard work and on your behalf. And Dan and Spencer, and you guys come up here too. Everybody stand up that works for Farm Bureau. Please tell them thanks. They make it fun to go to work every day. They make this event, the premier event, as far as I'm concerned, in the state of Missouri, certainly the premier agriculture event. They make your lives better, and for that, we thank them very much. Gratitude is humbling. After all, to give thanks is to admit that we can't do it alone. We owe thanks for the soldiers who protect us, the families that reared us, the country that allows us to live out our dreams. We owe thanks to people who wrote our Constitution, who led our country through wars and depressions, who despite all their all too human faults, made decisions that paved the way for a better future. As I close, I'd like to pause for a minute while all of you think of the people that you owe thanks to, all the people that you owe gratitude. Just think of who made it possible to be here today for you, who improved your life. When you get back home, tell them thanks, give them a call, write them a note, and tell them you appreciate them. If they're here at this meeting, shake their hands or give them a hug. And lest I forget, thanks to all of you for what you do for our organization. Thank you.